Hi, I'm Steven Handoko, and I'm a producer for On the Level with Jeff Hutton. There's a story I've been working on since February. It's about the trial of 6 Papuan activists in Jakarta who were charged with treason. The topic of Papua has always been sensitive in this country. It is one marinated in suspicions and semantics. The common lens in which we discuss and dissect any Papuan-related story is always monotonous. Through the government's looking glass, where it sees speech as subversion, protests as secession, and flags as treason. It should be noted that in May 2020, there are 68 people charged with treason, as reported by Human Rights Watch. After over 2 decades of Suharto's fall and the Reformation era that follows, political prisoners in Indonesia remains a conundrum. I've managed to talk to 3 of the activists and ask for their perspective. This is their story.
Tahu-tahu pas tanggal 30 hari Jumat itu.
This is Dano Anis Tabuni. On August 30th last year, his dormitory was raided by the police who wore plainclothes. He said the police arrived with weapons and charged the fences until it was destroyed. Dano was manning the fences at the time, keeping the police from entering. After the break-in, he ran to the kitchen. At the time, he did not know they were cops. He was traumatized and thought that they were going to kill him.
Saya langsung masuk ke dapur. Mereka tidak mengakui bahwa kita polisi.
The trauma, however, wasn't about what happened to him. It was what happened to other Papuans in another dormitory 2 weeks earlier.
Kami menyangka itu ormas. Dan saya taruhan orang pertama yang akan mati itu saya pikir.
It began in Surabaya, the second largest city in Indonesia, about 780 kilometers to the east of the capital. August 16, 2019. Around 3:20 p.m., a mob, along with members of the Indonesian Army and municipal police units known as Satpol PP, that specializes in riot control, confronted a group of Papuan students at their dormitory in Surabaya, the capital of East Java. The previous day, the army and Satpol PP had a talk with the residents and put up a flagpole and flown Indonesia's flag outside of the dormitory. But now, the pole was broken, and the flag was on the ground, desecrated. A big no-no anywhere. They turned to the residents of the dormitory, all Papuans, and accused them of desecrating the flag. Their anger turned to rage. They threw rocks, banged on the fences. They shouted racial epithets. The Papuan students were called monkeys. Later at night, their numbers grew, singing and chanting, "Banish, banish, banish Papua, banish Papua right now," they say. The next day, on Independence Day, the Surabaya police, equipped with tear gas, entered the dormitory and detained 42 residents. At least 5 people were injured. But until now, the police could never prove the residents were involved in desecrating the flag. Now, the stories of police and military confrontation with Papuan students was not uncommon. It wasn't even the first time it happened in that dormitory. In March 2018, police were deployed after they suspected the students of underground activity when they had a discussion and a movie screening. Sectoral Police Commissioner Prayitno said that they were anticipating Papuan people's ideology. He stated the movie was in conflict with national culture. And what movie was screened that day? The First Grader, a film released in 2010 about an elderly man who goes to school after Kenyan government's declaration of free universal primary education. Then, in July 2018, the army, the police, and Satpol PP surrounded the very same dormitory in Surabaya under the pretext of population survey on migrants. Local government officials accused them of having discussion on secession. Later in August, mass organizations demanded the students to raise the red and white flag. During negotiation, some men forced entry and threw rocks. A fight was inevitable. In December, the police and Satpol PP again surrounded the dormitory. They demanded the students to leave Surabaya after their long march in celebration of December 1st, the day associated with West Papua's independence. So you have to know that this doesn't happen in a vacuum. The seeds of suspicion and prejudice have always been planted there. In a sense, this dormitory is a microcosm of Papua. The residents are being kept under suspicion and living under constant threat with the military just right around the corner. But this time, the Papuans have had enough. It wasn't a mere personal conflict, it was racism in plain sight. The Papuans have been voicing this for years, but it always falls on deaf ears. Now, everyone is listening.
Sekali lagi, kalau memang itu ada kesalahan.
Local officials knew how bad it would look on their part. Both the mayor of Surabaya and the governor of East Java issued an apology for the incident. Later, the military even suspended their members who were involved in the incident. There was solidarity growing online and offline. Protests erupted in several cities demanding justice for the Papuan students in Surabaya. It wasn't just students, it wasn't just Papuans, it wasn't just activists. People in cities such as Bandung, Semarang, Denpasar, and Yogyakarta protested. One that caught attention was in Manokwari, West Papua. In a fit of rage, they blocked roads and burned a regional assembly office. When asked for his comment on the protests in Manokwari, President Joko Widodo said that while he understood that emotions run high, it is much better for Papuans to forgive.
Sebagai saudara sebangsa dan setanah air, yang paling baik adalah saling memaafkan.
The statement was problematic. The Papuans had suffered a double whammy. They had been attacked and detained. Now somehow they have to show forgiveness. Remember, failing to do so will make them appear as unforgiving. The protest then spread to Jakarta, the capital of Indonesia. A group called Alliance of Students Against Racism, Capitalism, Colonialism, and Militarism organized 2 days of demonstrations on August 22nd and again on August 28th. The group gathered in front of the Ministry of Home Affairs and marched toward the front of the sprawling presidential palace complex, home of 2 of the 6 official residences of the president. It is ground zero for political power, dating back to the Dutch colonial times when it was home to the Governor General. The protests were peaceful. More than 100 people attended. They demanded justice for the Surabaya incident. But there was also a political part stemming from Papua's uneasy relationship with the rest of the country. There were chants of a referendum on independence for Papua, and a song that included the lyrics, "Papua is not red and white," a reference to Indonesia's flag, and a challenge to the authority of Jakarta over Papua. And then there was another flag, the Morning Star flag. A white star on a red bar against a backdrop of 7 blue and 6 white horizontal stripes. It is the symbol of Papuan independence. It is so reviled by authorities that just by flying it, you can land up in jail for life sentence. We should stop to note what the source of all this rancor is. In 1969, there was a referendum for self-determination. While it was called Act of Free Choice, it was anything but. Rather than a one-man, one-vote referendum, it was only represented by 1,025 people, all handpicked by Indonesian government and under the watchful eye of soldiers. Here's Dano on why he demanded a referendum.
Jadi orang Papua itu kenapa mau merdeka ya karena PPRA 1969 itu tidak.
He felt that the 1969 referendum was a sham because it did not represent one man, one vote. The selected 1,025 were threatened. That's why Dano said Papuans demanded a referendum. And in this referendum, whatever the result is, they will accept it as long as it was Papuans who chose it.
Orang-orang pilihan oleh ya di bawah todongan senjata lah. Jadi mereka takut, jadi mereka terpaksa iyain. Maka PPRA 1969 itu tidak sah bagi kami. Oleh karena itu orang Papua menuntut untuk referendum. Referendum ini kan bukan berarti Papua itu sudah merdeka. Referendum ini kan rakyat itu akan memilih mau sama-sama Indonesia atau mau merdeka. Di situ hasil apapun itu akan kami terima. Jadi kami tidak mau seperti yang dilakukan pada tahun 1969. Tapi referendum artinya ya sesuai dengan mekanisme internasional. Dan orang Papua itu sendiri yang memilih, yang menentukan nasibnya. Dia mau tetap bersama Indonesia atau dia mau merdeka. Disitulah kita akan lihat hasilnya.
What's at stake here are some of the richest, though tough to reach mineral resources. The world's biggest gold mine is there, and the world's second biggest copper mine are there, both run by Freeport Indonesia. The mine, Grasberg, is stuck in the middle of the mountains and jungle that comprise the province that is the size of Germany. Papuans are distinct from the rest of the country too. Dark skin, curly hair, and ethnically Melanesian, as opposed to the lighter-skinned Javanese, Sundanese, and others to the west. And maybe because of the racial differences of their distance from the population centers of Java, 4,000 kilometers away, it's Indonesia's poorest province too. By the government's own measures, 27% of Papuans are considered poor, compared with just under 4% of residents of Jakarta. Photos of the protests in Jakarta circulated on social media and on TV news. Public officials began commenting on the flag. The head of the People's Consultative Assembly, or the upper house of the parliament, questioned why law enforcement don't take it seriously. The then chief of police demanded anyone flying the flag to be prosecuted. And then they were. 20-year-old theology student Arina Elepere admitted this was her first demonstration she attended. There's a call to solidarity inside her to voice against oppression that fellow Papuan students suffer. As a Papuan herself, she attended the protest with a morning star painted on her face. 3 days later, she was followed by strangers on her way back to the dorm.
Tanggal 31 Agustus baru saya bersama saya punya teman-teman. Kami habis masak makan sore, keluar beli air minum di depan Indomaret. Setelah kami beli air minum, dalam perjalanan ada orang yang terus mengikuti kami.
After she went shopping at mini market. At the time, she was with her sister and aunt. There were men who followed her and asked them about the latest development in Papua. Suspicious that these men keep following them, they began to run. The man then shouted, "That's the perpetrator." She was taken by one person who kept telling her to keep quiet. "You're embarrassing yourself. There are people here. Don't embarrass us as well."
Dan saya punya teman setelah sampaikan ungkapan yang tadi, dia terus lari ke depan asrama dan mereka katakan bahwa itu yang lari itu adalah pelakunya katanya. Saya ambil saya punya HP di saku dan saya langsung rekaman suara di grup Monyet Papua Jakarta dan saya langsung sampaikan bahwa ini kami lagi dapat tangkap. Ternyata ada bapak satu datang ambil saya punya HP langsung tarik dari tangan saya dan mengaku bahwa dia adalah polisi. Saya minta tolong kepada warga, minta tolong ini ada orang mau menangkap kami seperti itu. Bapak polisi mengatakan jangan berteriak, bikin malu saja katanya, bikin malu saja. Tidak boleh, ini banyak warga. Tidak boleh dong, bikin kami malu saja kami. Dan waktu itu juga saya sangat trauma sekali karena malam-malam kami dibawa ke sana dan jalan raya Bogor itu terlalu gelap sekali dan mereka sengaja putar-putar di jalan raya besar Bogor dan sengaja barangkali mereka stop.
While en route to the police station, the car met several detours and occasional smoke breaks. It was at this time that Arina thought she was going to be killed.
Lalu ada lagi sebelah kanan saya bertanya, kamu ngapain sih begini-begini? Kamu ngapain sih dukung-dukung Papua? Itu kan bagi saya pertanyaan konyol.
That's Surya Antaginting, also one of the activists jailed for the flag in Jakarta. Surya is in Papua. In fact, his Batakni is from the island of Sumatra, which is 4,000 kilometers to the west of Papua. His raids often lead to question of motive from the police. Surya loaded the question about motives from the police. Why is he doing it? Because of humanity. He said, if we praise the Dutch who supported Indonesia's independence, why can't we be in solidarity with Papuans?
Dan berjuang sampai mati untuk kemerdekaan Indonesia. Tapi kan tidak. Ya kan? Dipuji. HJC Prinsen dipuji. Douws Dekker dipuji. Ya kan? Semua orang-orang Belanda yang berjuang bagi kemerdekaan Indonesia dipuji. Tapi apakah dengan prinsip yang sama, prinsip kemanusiaan, prinsip solidaritas, apakah kita tidak bisa bersolidaritas terhadap orang Papua?
Less than a week after the Jakarta protest, 6 people, later dubbed the Jakarta Six, were charged with treason, a charge that could land them in jail for 20 years. Prosecutors argued that flying the Morning Star flag, the t-shirts imprinted with the flag, the face paint in the design of the flag, the chants calling for a referendum, the slogan of Papua Merdeka, or Freedom for Papua, all showed the protesters wanted Indonesia's dismemberment. This, the prosecutors went on to say, amounted to makar, an act of willful subversion of the state or attempts at violent overthrow of the government. And because words and symbols were at the heart of the allegations, at least as the prosecution saw it, The trial is basically a case for the definition of treason. One noteworthy testimony is from a linguist brought by the prosecutors. Dr. Aprinus Salam, a professor of cultural studies at Gajah Mada University, considered one of the big three universities, whose alumni include Presiden Joko Widodo.
Kesepakatan simbolik sistem komunikasi kita, baik dalam kehidupan bermasyarakat dan bernegara, itu diikat oleh satu kesepakatan simbolik.
Dr. Aprinus said, and I'm paraphrasing, that words and symbols knit together a vast and diverse country like Indonesia. The national anthem, the national motto, unity in diversity, and yes, the flag are sacred. But was any chance flags, face pans, slogans, and songs played at the protest amounted to a threat to national unity?
Bahasa, bendera, lagu, Pancasila secara keseluruhan ya. Sebagai warga melanggar kesepakatan simbolik 4 hal tadi atau 5 hal tadi, kebenaran yang kita dukung adalah kebenaran bernegara. Di luar itu berarti secara simbolik dia melanggar.
Well, for Aprinus, symbolic threats is worse than physical threats. For a country like Indonesia that has seen its fair share of violence, it was a baffling line of argument. But it was this statement that will go on to shape the trial. The 3-judge panel would later rule that makar, or subversion, is not necessarily a physical attack, but verbal speech or the use of symbols.
Jadi makar itu bisa bersifat kewacanaan atau bersifat simbolik.
Pertama, konstitusi kita itu menjamin kemerdekaan setiap warga untuk menyatakan pendapatnya tanpa intervensi. Dan itu termasuk warga di Papua menyatakan pendapat, termasuk pendapatnya ingin merdeka atau ingin menentukan nasib sendiri.
Usman Hamid is Amnesty International Executive Director in Indonesia. Responding to Aprinus' statement, Hamid said it boils down to ideological fixation. It was as if the statement can be considered criminal. It was as if there isn't any other point of view in saying Papua. The trial exposed the rigid ideology dating back to Suharto's New Order era, or Orba. It's called Orbaism. Orbaism is not much of an ideology as it is a mishmash of ideas deemed subservient and non-threatening to Suharto's legitimacy. In other words, being Suharto's sycophant. After Aprinus' testimony, the 6 activists took a few minutes to make a speech responding to his statement.
Ahli bahasa itu sangat kental sekali pretensi politik. Ahli bahasa tadi, seorang akademisi dari UGM, terlihat sekali punya pandangan politik.
Surya said the linguist has shown his political preference, and his political view is Orbaism. We can see that Orbaism is not just about Suharto or military, but even in words. Why did he say Orbaism? Because Aprinus kept saying sacred agreement in his speech. He also said accusing the state can be considered as makar, treason, and he said that having a different view or attacking a certain view is more dangerous than a physical attack. That is the tenet of Orbaism, stifling others' point of view.
Yang kedua, dia juga mengatakan bahwa menuduh negara bisa dikategorikan makar. Dan yang ketiga, dia mengatakan bahwa perbedaan pandangan, wacana, itu lebih berbahaya dibandingkan serangan fisik. Itu saya pikir sebagai tulang punggung dari gagasan Orbaismenya. Mengapa? Sebab intisari dari gagasan Orbaisme adalah menolak serangan politik dalam gagasan.
In the end, the 6 were convicted with a light sentence, 8 to 9 months of imprisonment. While it was vastly different from the treason sentence given to Papuan activists in the past, such as Philip Karma, the remnants of Orbaism still lingers. Perhaps it is fitting that what started as a story of desecration of a flag ends up as a story of another flag being raised. But what is unfortunate from this case is that it sucked up the attention to the stories of flag raising while being in complete amnesia over this episode's original scene, the racist attack in Surabaya. It leaves the remaining question that stuck the entire time. What does a flag represent? Flags are always about identity, be it cultural or political. Sadly, far too often we don't ask ourselves what makes us Indonesians, but rather we define it as who doesn't belong here. Maybe that's what Papuans see in Merah Putih. Maybe they felt left out. Here is Usman Hamid again.
Mereka sedang berdemonstrasi insiden rasialisme yang tidak mendapati penanganan serius dari negara yang terjadi di Surabaya, dan mereka mengucapkan itu dalam berbagai orasinya, termasuk menyampaikan diantaranya adalah Papua bukan merah putih itu. Dengan kata lain,
saying Papua is not red and white can be interpreted as a critic of the state because they never heard of Papuans' aspiration. If Papua is red and white, Usman said, Papuans should be respected with humanity. The government's treatment on dissenting voices is verging on paranoia. Time and time again, we see people being jailed for having the wrong opinion, wrong sexual orientation, wrong politics, and yes, wrong skin color. And for Papuans, it was even worse. Michael Himan, one of the lawyers of the activists, noted that with the treason case, the conversation effectively turned Papuans from victims into perpetrators. Rather than talking about the plight of Papuans living as strangers and pariahs in their own country, we instead argue about semantics and symbolisms in songs and flags. While the attack in Surabaya is in no way the first trigger for Papuans demanding a referendum, it is undeniably a catalyst for it.
Indonesia kan selalu bilang itu hanya sekelompok, hanya kepentingan. Sebenarnya kita berjuang Papua merdeka ini bukan kepentingan.
Dano Tabuni remarked that Papuans who call for a referendum are often called doing so for personal motives. But to him, speaking up against the unnecessary deaths of Papuans is a concern for humanity.
Kita tidak menginginkan untuk kekerasan, tapi kita diperlakukan, dibunuh, ditembak mati. Ya sewenang-wenang lah dilakukan oleh negara ini. Oleh karena itu di awal saya sempat bilang bersama negara Republik ini orang Papua memang tidak punya nasib dan harapan masa depan.
Perhaps there's one thing Aprinus Salam said that both Papuans and Indonesian governments can agree.
Kebenaran masyarakat Papua belum tentu kebenaran bernegara.
They see different truths. So on this Independence Day, I want you to rethink what it really means to be free. When just last year, our Papuan friends were terrorized, threatened, mocked, and assaulted. Before their trial on December 2019, the 6 activists sang a song written by Papuan anthropologist Arnold Up. It's called Life is a Mystery. The lyric of the last stanza goes, "If only I were an eagle, soaring high, far as the eye can see. Alas, he was unlucky, and it hunted down and killed. All that I wish for, all that I hope for, is nothing but freedom." Arnold died in 1984, but his music continues to embody the spirit of Papuan struggles. This episode cannot be done without the help of people who have graciously provided insight and materials to us, and I would like to say my gratitude to them. to Ruth Ogetai for accompanying me during the trial and giving me insight on Papuan culture and history, to the 6 activists, Suryanta Ginting, Dano Anestabuni, Charles Kosai, Arina Elopere, Isai Wenda, and Ambrosius Mulait. Thank you to Chika Dabuni for providing additional recording. Thanks to Jeff Hutton and Imam Shofwan for their input to the script. Thank you to Usman Hamid, Amnesty International, to Michael Himan, to Sekar and Alves from Papua Itu Kita who have provided the court's note, to Rico Tude and Roland Levy. Our editor is Alinda Rimaya. Music is from Soundstripe and I'm Steven Handoko and this is On the Level with Jeff Hutton. We'll see you next week.